When people hear the name NASA, three terms come to their minds: space, spherical Earth, and rockets. But if we search for the date of establishment, then the second story will be told. What is NASA and how did it appear, and what are its real goals? What's the relationship of the Nazi Party and Werner Braun with the agency's origin and establishment? And how are the voyages of discovery of Antarctica related to all of that? We'll open the pages of the 20th century of the emergence of the space agency, and will reveal to you secret documents from the Soviet Union and the old NACA and present the three stages from the beginning of the project to the goals. This is the full picture of the second story, the story of NASA. In the first year of World War I, Britain met with its new camp, America, to study advanced secret research that would completely change the balance of war. The meeting concluded that whoever rules the air rules the ground, so a National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics was established, which is the legal mother of NASA today, known as NACA, with the aim of promoting industry, academic, and government coordination on war-related projects. The agency was modeled on similar national agencies found in Europe: the French National Office for Aerospace Studies and Research, the German Aerodynamic Laboratory of the University of Göttingen, in addition to the Russian Aerodynamic Institute of Kuchino, which is now known as the Central Aerohydrodynamic Institute, TSAGI. But the most influential agency upon which the NACA was based was the British Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. On March 3, 1915, Congress authorized the establishment of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Under the authorizing statute, the NACA's mission would be to supervise and direct the scientific study of the flight problems with a view to their practical solution, and to determine the problems which should be experimentally attacked and to discuss their solution and their application to practical questions. This announcement was nothing more than just an informational announcement to people. During the first 5 years, the agency committed itself to this matter and began developing aircraft and engines. But in the middle of the second decade of the 20th century, the agency suddenly turned to developing wind-resistant aircraft. So what was the goal of that? Or in other words, where will those aircrafts be used? In 1925, America began implementing a secret document demanded by Britain to discover the North Pole, as it's known today among the general of people, as a continuation of the ill-fated voyage of Arctic exploration in 1845, which ended with a terrifying story. 1 year after this document, the famous US Admiral Richard Byrd, along with his colleague Floyd Bennett, made the first trip over the North Pole. Byrd and his colleague claimed that they had reached the North Pole at a distance of 1,545 miles by means of an advanced airplane called Josephine Ford, which was funded by the owner of the Ford Company and developed by the NACA. The secrets of this flight were recorded in the American and British archives, and its details were revealed later by the American admiral himself. After this great discovery of the frozen Arctic islands, Britain, in cooperation with the American camp and the Soviet Union, funded a scientific research with nearly 100 highly qualified engineers to develop aircraft and marine ships to discover Antarctica. Within 2 years, Admiral Richard was once again entrusted with that task, and under strict secrecy, the trip of 2 ships and 3 planes took off and reached great icy lands in a spot was named Little America. Byrd mentioned in his report, when he described those frozen lands, a sentence that the world didn't pay attention to. He literally said the outside world. Then he mentioned that Antarctica, or as some call it incorrectly, the South Pole, is surrounded by a very high wall. After that discovery, and in the early 30s, British ships detected hidden movements of the Nazi fleet as they headed towards Antarctica. Confidential reports were delivered to US President Franklin Roosevelt, the financier of NACA, Edsel Ford, and the most famous influencer, John D. Rockefeller. They agreed in a unified meeting on the need to support trips towards the land of ice to control it, before the dominance of the Red Nazi Army, which was representing the first terror for Britain, America, and the Allied countries. But the movement was difficult as Britain and its allies didn't possess the equipment capable of moving far into the lands of ice. Unlike the Nazis, who were already aware of the reality of Antarctica and at the same time were militarily and technically ahead of America and Britain and even all the Allied countries. In the mid-30s of the last century, Nazi Germany and America along with the Allied countries began racing to discover the great land of ice, and the mother agency of NASA would play the largest role after a while. The news of the icy lands surrounding Earth spread quickly, which was disastrous for the great powers, as a psychological preparation was being built specifically at the beginning of the 20th century based on the spherical Earth. But the discovery of Antarctica would easily destroy everything. America, in agreement with the Allied countries headed by Britain and Russia, drew up a fake map of the land of ice, which was called the Antarctic map, where Antarctica was presented as a frozen patch located at the bottom of the fictional globe, but in the same year the Nazis presented maps showing the opposite. What many don't know is that one of the hidden and direct causes of the outbreak of World War II between the Nazi Red Party against Britain and the Allied powers is Antarctica. A year after World War II started, the Air Force, which was supervised by NACA, failed to penetrate the air system of the Nazis. The system was supervised by an elite group of German scientists led by Werner Braun, the one who developed a ballistic missile with which Germany bombed Britain at the time, amidst the world's astonishment at Nazi technology. After that incident, Bert was assigned to go to Antarctica in light of the Nazi Party's preoccupation with World War II. Britain and America sent secret expeditions to the land of ice surrounding Earth. And the most important of these secret operations was Operation Tabarine, a secret British expedition in Antarctica. It began in 1943 and aimed to patrolling that land against Nazi forces who were threatening Allied ships. The secret operation resulted in the establishment of a number of British bases, which helped Britain to plant its hand in the region, in addition to obtaining meteorological and topographical data with ice measurements, and it continued until 1946. After that secret operation, the NACA did strange things that the world didn't understand at the time. What many don't know is that both NACA and Intel are companies for the development of war weapons. The first in the field of missiles and air fleet, and the second in the field of highly developed war technology, where the parent company of NASA contributed mainly to the development of World War II weapons. However, after the end of Tabarine operation, the agency was provided with geological information and it was asked to carry out studies whose purpose wasn't even known to its employees, which is to measure the effect of high wind speed and pressure on the pilot and the plane. Bell X engines were developed that provide aircraft at a speed higher than the speed of sound. And after those things, America and Britain announced with a huge war fleet an operation known as Operation High Jump. Hence, some learned the real goals of that operation. First is the discovery of the lands beyond Antarctica, as the Admiral stated that beyond the ice there are continents larger than the continent of America with a temperate climate and green lands. And the second goal is to confront the Nazi forces.